What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight review video for Errol Spence versus Yordenis Ugas. Now, before I give y'all my analysis, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all the results. Errol Spence was able to pick up a 10th round stoppage win to now become the new unified WBC, WBA, and IBF welterweight champion. And he's the first man to stop Ugas in Ugas' pro career. And now this means he is now the holder of 3 out of the 4 major titles at 147. Now this puts him, at a leverage for that undisputed title fight that all boxing fans or all sports fans, period, is waiting on. That's, of course, Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. And yeah, there's been talks of them two getting in the ring to make that undisputed title fight go down. And there's been, trouble as far as them two agreeing on a contract to actually get in there to crown the undisputed champion at 147. Errol Spence been pushing for, 70-30. Since this fight has been, came up to, the minds of boxing fans, they've been, in negotiations to, make this happen, but, they couldn't, come to an agreement, and, Errol Spence feels like he's the bigger draw, which he is, and he is the more of a guy, I would say, at 147, if that makes sense. He before beating Ugas last night, he held, more titles. Of course, Terrence Crawford only holds one, and that's that missing one title now for Errol Spence, and that's the WBO belt. And Spence has been fighting at 147 longer than Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is a guy who's coming up from 135. And now, he's been at the WBO belt for some time now. But, as far as the negotiating part for them to actually get in there, Errol Spence feels like he has a leverage. But now with him holding 3 out of the 4 major titles, this definitely puts him at an advantage. But I don't know if, this fight is going to be any harder to make than, the previous years. Because now, as y'all know, Terrence Crawford, he's not with Top Rank anymore. He don't got Bob Arum and them promoting him. They actually got a little, lawsuit dispute going on right now. And Terrence Crawford in his last fight, which was against Sean Porter, and that was, his last fight with Top Rank. But Sean Porter, while he was active, he was promoted by PBC. And, PBC and Top Rank, much like how they collab for that Ultimate Heavyweight title showdown with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, they did the same for the first time ever for Terrence Crawford to get in there with a PBC fighter, Sean Porter, for, I would say, Terrence Crawford's biggest challenge, where he succeeded at. Just like how Errol Spence is the first ever man to stop Ugas in Ugas' pro career, Terrence Crawford is the first man to ever stop Sean Porter. But here's what I say. The Sean Porter stoppage was questionable, was definitely, arguable. I disagree with, his father's decision to throw in the towel versus Terrence Crawford, unlike Errol Spence last night, where he picked up a stoppage win over Ugas, where the doctor had to step in and advise to the referee that, they should go ahead and stop the fight because Ugas' eye was shut. Like, it was completely shut. And I ain't disagree with the stoppage. The ref didn't either because, prior to the 10th round, the doctor actually checked up on Ugas when that swelling was, very bad, and he just kept on getting hit from the first time the doctor checked up on him, and the ref let the fight continue. But Spence just kept going to work with his combos, and kept hitting his target, and the doctor thought that it was enough, and the ref agreed, and they stopped the fight. Of course, Ugas having the heart of a champion, he wanted to continue. But hey, if y'all been tapping into the post-fight coverages, it was announced that Ugas had not only suffered a, I'm pretty sure, a eye injury, but he also suffered a broken rib because Errol Spence was going to the body from the first round on, and he also broke Ugas's nose. Um, and that was announced after the fight. So I'm definitely not gonna disagree with the doctor's decision, in stopping the fight, and um, because the eye wasn't the only thing that was injured uh, that night for Ugas. Um, and yeah, anyways, I kind of got, I usually talk about, what could potentially be next for the winner of a fight for my post fight coverages uh, for the last part of the video, but I went ahead and talked about what's next for Errol Spence in the beginning part of the video. Um, yeah, but we all know what should be next for Errol Spence. He even said it in the post-fight interview. He called out Terrence Crawford. That's the only fight really left for him at 147. Like I said, now he holds 3 of the 4 major titles at 147. This fight's uh, been campaigned for since these two guys have been uh, champions at 147. And now, since these two guys are the only guys at welterweight holding the titles, it only makes sense that, they go ahead and make this, mega fight happen between the two pound for pound welterweight kings. Um, yeah. And as far as Ugas goes, man, there's still, names at welterweight. He fights with PBC, and, PBC got all the welterweights. He still got guys that he can mix it up with. But let me get on to, breaking down how the fight went. The first round was basically a feel out round, trying to study each other. But, it was, active though. Errol Spence was pushing the action most of the, first round. Ugas looked at like, he was just trying to counter Spence. I gave a round to Spence because, of sheer activity, and Spence was having some success landing his shots. But Ugas, if y'all saw the CompuBox numbers, Ugas threw way less than Spence, but he landed more punches. But I'm not counting the punches. I'm only going by what I see. And Spence, he had some succession in the first round, and he was more active. Ugas just wasn't throwing enough, and the punches that he was landing just didn't look that effective. Some of them did have effects, but it's the first round though. Then the only like on my scorecard, I had the fight score 87 to 84. I gave Ugas 3 rounds out of the 10 rounds that they fought. I gave Ugas round 3, where I thought, he was countering Spence pretty effectively and, was disrupting his rhythm. And then in the 6th round, it was for sure Ugas, because Ugas knocked the mouth guard out of Spence. And he actually almost knocked down Spence, which Spence has never been dropped in his pro career. He hit him with a straight right, which sends Spence all the way to the ropes. The commentators were saying, that could have been what stopped Errol Spence from hitting the canvas was the ropes. And I thought, the referee, doing his job, making sure Spence has his mouth guard back in his mouth. I thought pause no freaky. I thought, bought Spence some time to what I'm saying, like to recover and gain his composure back. And but in the 8th round, I think it was the 8th round, 7th or 8th round, it was the same thing where Ugas, he had a little time bought when the doctors came to the apron to check on his eye that was swelling up. And before the doctor interrupted the fight, or let me not say it like that. Let me use a better word. Um, Before the doctor came in there to check on Ugas, um, Errol Spence was going to work. He was, uh, mixing it up with his combos, and it looked like Ugas was on his verge of getting out of there, and then the doctor stepped in to check on his eye. And that bought Ugas some time. It's not like how, Spence recovered in the sixth, because after the ref put the mouth guard back in Spence's mouth, and Spence was ready for action again, Spence went right to work. It looked like, like I said, he regrouped, and he was able to get back in tune, and he was throwing combos, and he was actually landing some few good shots before the sixth round ended. And then the eighth, where, or seventh or eighth, I don't know which round it was. I believe it was the eighth round where the doctor came in there to check on Ugas's eye. After the doctor, said, hey, if he wants to continue, and the ref let the fight go on. It was Spence all. It was all Spence that round. Um, he went right back to work, and Ugas, after the time that he had to, I guess, uh, get away from Spence, because he ain't recovered fully, because like I said, after the doctors checked up on him, Spence went right back to work. Um, so yeah, it didn't that little timeout didn't have the same effect for Ugas as it did for Spence. And I gave Ugas the ninth round because after the sixth round it was all Spence, and all the rounds that I gave to Ugas other than the sixth round was really questionable, and it could have went either way. But the ninth round I gave to Ugas because I think after taking all those shots from Spence, and he probably knew that he was down on the scorecard. I mean, the looks on the fighter showed who was winning the fight. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure that called for desperation for Ugas, and Ugas had to pull out what he had to pull out, whatever was remaining in him, and he was throwing uh, with more desperation, and had to dig deep to try and have the momentum shift the other way, and he had few successful moments in the ninth round, which is the round before he got stopped, and in the attempt where the doctor came in and told the ref this fight should be stopped, and the ref agreed with that call and put a halt to the bout. It was all Spence. Spence was all over him in that last round, and yeah, Errol Spence, man, like I said, this probably I think is one of his best performances, especially coming off a uh, detached retina injury. I'm sure this fight was pretty personal for him. If y'all was watching the All Access and the lead up to the fight, I'm sure Spence wanted that fight badly versus Pacquiao, because to have a legend like Manny Pacquiao on your resume, even if you don't win, that's a big name to have on your record. And um, Errol Spence, he was saying that even with the injury, he wanted to let the fight continue. That's how bad he wanted to fight. Because, I say Sean Porter to this day is his toughest opponent on record. And then, Kell Brook as well, because he beat Kell Brook while Kell Brook was in his prime. Um, yeah, but Sean Porter, Kell Brook, I think were, more of a legit name than a old at a prime Manny Pacquiao, which who Spence would have fought, and I'm sure Spence would have won that fight, but he had that potential win. I don't want to say stolen from him, but he had that opportunity taken away from him due to a injury, and um, you know his last two fights, including this fight versus Ugas, were coming back from two career-threatening injuries. When he fought Danny Garcia back in 2020, it was him coming back from that car accident. He wasn't able to stop Danny Garcia in that comeback fight like he did for this comeback fight. But for him to look like how he looked for those two return fights, um, uh, just uh, just unbelievable. That Errol Spence, after coming off something like that, the way he bounced back is great. It's great. Only a great could pull something like that off. And yeah, we all waiting for that fight to go down with him and Terrence Crawford. I'm sure Terrence Crawford, um, after he goes through what he goes through with his little promotional beef he got going on, they can make that fight happen immediately, or if not, let Terrence Crawford get in there with somebody like Keith Thurman, who's coming off that win versus Mario Barrios, which he looked impressive in. But I don't know if he deserves a title shot after one fight, after being out of action for so long. But I think that would be the most marketable fight for Terrence Crawford to have before getting in there for that undisputed title showdown with him and Spence. If not, then he could have that fight immediately. Errol Spence fought yesterday, so I don't think he probably gonna fight all the way up until like summer or fall. And Terrence Crawford had his last fight last year in the fall time. So I'm sure he might want to get a, I don't want to say a tune-up fight because he's a champion, but other than Errol Spence, I'm just gonna call it like I see it. These two guys, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, are on the level of their own. I see the only guy that really holds a huge threat to them right now at 147 is Jaron Ennis. But other than Ennis, I don't see anybody really, having the potential of beating either guys at 147. So I'm gonna call it like I see it. If he has a fight before he gets in there with Errol Spence, it would be considered a tune-up fight, at least for me. But that's obviously the next fight to make for both champions at 147. Then as far as Ugas goes, he could maybe get in there with a up-and-coming fighter like Crawley, who had an impressive win over the veteran Jose Cito Lopez on the undercard to this fight. Maybe a fight like that is what could or should be next for him. Or he could get in there with somebody like Jaron Ennis, which I think is more of a dangerous fight for Ugas, especially someone his age coming off a loss like his fight versus Spence last night. That would, to get in there with somebody like Ennis after a fight like that would be more dangerous because, like I said, I think Ennis is the only guy who holds a threat to both Spence and Terrence Crawford. And like I said, anybody outside of Boots, I don't see anybody coming close to defeating the two champions at 147. But that's where I see Ugas is stepping in the next. I think he's going to be like one of them gatekeepers at 147, like a Rosado at middleweight, or like how Danny Garcia has been for some time now. Or he could get in there with Danny Garcia too. That would be a fun fight. I don't know if they can draw a main event crowd. They probably still could. Their names hold enough clout, but I don't know if that's a main event worthy fight, or maybe get in there with somebody like Keith Thurman. PBC's got all the welterweights. He's not going to fight somebody outside of PBC like a Virgil Ortiz or Conor Benn, who are also prospects on the come up at 147. Yeah, anyways, that does it for this post-fight review video. Y'all let me know what y'all thoughts are in the comments. If y'all got a video covering this fight, I'll be more than glad to check it out. Subscribe, comment, share, like, all that good stuff. Y'all stay healthy, stay safe, and I'm out. Peace.